Mm, so, I'm going to discuss the question that how to stop the explanation of a private prison labor. And my propose is that the best way is to abolish the private prison. So, in order to discuss this question, we need first understand who is the prison labor. So, according to my research, like the prison laborers are a bunch of prisoners who serve sentence in the jail, and these prisoners' labors are arranged by the prison rehabilitative industries and diversifies enterprise. This is a private non-profit corporation. And the next question we need to discuss is that it is necessary for the prisoners to work in prisons because I like to say yes for several reasons. Firstly, the prisoners should get some training in order to help them to build their skill when they out of the prison. They need to find a work, and if they do this, it can help them to find a work easier. And secondly, if we require them to do this, it can help the state to reduce the cost because it can help increase the GDP, for example. So the truth is that prison labor has been exploited. Although they need to work in the prison, I'd like to say they shouldn't be exploited. But the truth is, the salary of prison labor is much lower compared with a normal worker. For example, that prisoners work 8 hours a day and make only between 0.23 and $1.15 per hour on average, which means it is like 6 times less compared with a normal worker. This is like 6 times, which is pretty big difference. And another truth is that the prison labor work much longer compared with a normal worker. Like they be required to work much longer, more than 8 hours, maybe 9 or 10 hours, and we need to solve that problem that the prison labor is being exploded. But the question is how. So I like to propose a question to cure this problem, which is abolish private prison. And this is proposed by President Obama on 15 August, on August 15. And this is meant to stop the use of private prison to of the to the house federal inmates. So everyone going to ask, what is private prison? Normally, the private prison is a place in which individuals are physically confined by the third party, which regulated by the government. And so, I'd like to introduce more the background of the private prison. So, from the beginning of the 1990s, the United States federal and the state government began to cooperate with the contractors to build this private prison. And then the prison labor, because the prison labor means a magnificent profit, and there is no health insurance, and the workers are full time and never late or absent. Therefore, the tycoon began to invest to build this private prison. And but the good point is that this private prison can solve the problem that the overcrowding of a public prison problem. So, but however, because of the appearance of the private prison, the exploration of the prison labor becomes so served because the data shows that inmates are deprived of the basic human rights and they have to work as a assignment with a lower wage and with no health insurance, which is pretty bad. And more bad and the worst is the private prison are also foster incentive to lock people up. And the another bad point is that the private prison can cause the prison industrial complex. So, I think some people are going to ask, what is a prison industrial complex? Normally, prison industrial complex is a way used to attribute the rapid expansion of the U.S. inmates population to the political influence of the private prison company. And this dominates the process that some private sector persuade the, this to allow them to private some organizations such as immigration detention and private prison. This is a profitable business which benefits the contractor of a private prison. So I like to say prison industrial complex and the establishment of the private prison are the essential reasons that the prison labor being exploited. So if and the relationship between these two stuff is that private prison get a great profit. Therefore, they would like to support the prison industrial complex. And why this solution, which abolish the private prison, work? This work because if we abolish the private prison, the cooperation between the government and those contractor of the private prison will greatly reduce because firstly the private prison do not offer the same level of service programs and resource. This is only try to make profit by squeezing the prisoners. For example, that I like to use data to show this. The first two largest private prisons in the United States earned about $33.3 billion in last years, which means it is much higher compared with the normal system of prison. And secondly, the abolishment of the private prison can effectively cure the prison industrial complex because uh, basically, the private prison is a tool of the tycoon to gain profit, and if the private prison are removed, those tycoon will lose their goal of lobbying for legislation in support of extending the sentence or lock more people, and thus this can stop the prison industrial complex. And thirdly, as long as the private prison stopped, there is not much business on the judiciary. Thus, the prison industry complex doesn't have enough reason to exist. And more than curing the prison industrial complex, phasing out the private prison can dramatically reduce the rate of prison labor exploited. For the two reasons. The first reason is that the population of inmates will greatly reduce without a private prison, as a private prison has played a huge role in a great increase of inmates. And secondly, and more importantly, is that the existence of a private prison worsen the is the main factor fostering exploration of prison labor will decrease as the existence of a private prison worsen the working environment of inmates. And so I like to introduce another way to solve this problem, which is an international policy. This is another effective policy named separation of the prison industry, which from uh, this policy was proposed in January 2003 from China State Council and approved in 2008. This proof the Chinese Ministry of Justice determined to fully implement the prison system reform throughout the country, especially to implement the policy that separates enterprise from prison. And this policy aimed to separate the prison industry from the prison system, which means the private companies cannot contact directly with the prison labor. Thus, they can't directly manage the inmates' working environment. Also, the reason this solution is worked to eliminate the exploit of the prison labor is that the industry always deduce the prison labor salary. However, once we separate them, the private prison do not have chance to control this. And more, the more is that this also means that the prison industry will get profit from the prison system rather than seeking profit by cooperation by cooperating with the prison system. And I like to say something like with the development of history, some historical issues need to be solved. The prison industry complex is one of the issues need public concerns. Due to this system, the private prison has the opportunity to be extended. Honestly, the root reason for the private prison can be traced back to the implementation of forced working to the inmates, and the forced working is regarded as an approach to rehabilitate prisoners. As a consequence, some private companies smell the profit of the cheap labor and then begin cooperate with the state and the federal government to build private prison to exploit the prisoners. Since then, the private prison become a key tool to sequencing inmates. As a return, the establishment of a private prison um, increase or create the prison industrial complex. It is obvious that a viable solution to the exploitation of prison labor and the prison industrial complex is to remove the point private prison. Luckily, Obama's administration claimed the government is going to shut off the private prison and house the federal prison, which is exciting news. And this will effectively stop the exploration of the prison labor and the prison industrial complex. Besides, this policy, the policy United States is going to carry out the international mm, policy separate enterprise from prison is also a recommended approach, which can greatly stop the exploration of prison labor. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Thank you.